Hello everyone, my name is Paula Sampson Lawrence and I'm super excited and honoured to be here with you today on the Parenting the Intensity Retreat. I'm just excited for this opportunity to help and to serve the parents of emotionally intense children. I'm right there with you. I know it's not easy, so I'm really happy to be here with you today. So let's get started. My presentation today is entitled Navigating Cultural Expectations Whilst Accommodating Your Child's Emotional Needs. So my aims and objectives today really is to be able to share with you some actionable strategies and techniques for balancing cultural expectations with the emotional well-being of your children, empowering you as parents to apply these in your daily lives. I want to encourage and equip you to engage in open, empathetic dialogue with your children and your family of origin about cultural and emotional topics, fostering a supportive and understanding home environment, which is what we all want, really. I really want to help you identify and implement ways to integrate cultural traditions with nurturing emotional support, creating a harmonious family dynamic that respects both aspects. Again, this is what we want again. So, a little bit about me. I'm the mum of 4 children. I'm a certified parenting coach. I've been working with young people and families for 15 years. Company is called Accelerate Empowerment, where we do empowerment and wellbeing workshops for young girls. And also I do one-to-one and group coaching for parents. I also volunteer for a non-profit called AfriKindness, and I'm a parent coach there, and I do webinars and an event really supporting parents in the local community. So, but the main reason I started this work is, like I said, I'm a mum of 4 kids. Currently, my kids are 14, 12, 10, and 4. So I'm in the thick of parenting. I'm in there with you, parent. I'm going through it the same way you are, and we're learning together. So to start with, it's really important for you to examine the cultural norms that are present in your family of origin, in your local community, the people that are around you, right? And I do want to start by saying also that cultural identity is obviously crucial for children to foster that sense of belonging, to know where they came from, to know what the people around them, before them, what their values were, how they lived their lives. I would encourage you to take a pen and paper and actually write this down. Examine what cultural values you were brought up with. Which ones do you truly value and want to incorporate into family dynamics, and which ones do you want to exclude? It's important to know that, because then that's the only way forward once you've got a bit of a map about what you want to do and what you don't want to do. And I just wanted to quickly go through some common cultural expectations. Obviously, this cultural expectations varies wildly, we know this, depending on geography, your ethnicity, your religion, societal factors. So there's lots of broad themes that can often emerge, but I just want to sort of simplify it and give you like a generic list. So one, and again, I'm taking a lot of things from where I was brought up. I was brought up in a traditionally African family. And but I think that still a lot of those traditions and dynamics play out across the world. So the first one is having a respect for elders. So in many cultures, children are expected to show a high regard for elders, respect them, parents, grandparents, aunties, uncles, extended family members. Again, not a bad thing, but I just wanted you to think about what that looks like in your house, how we're defining respect, right? So making sure that your definition is sort of similar to the people that are around you, because sometimes people can have a different opinion of what respect means. For some people, respect means doing what I say regardless because I am older than you. And I'm sure you can agree that is not always wise, and it's not always responsible and a good thing to do, right? Family solidarity, family over everything, regardless of what is happening in your family. The family is prioritized over individual needs, with an emphasis on maintaining family honor and unity. So keeping that reputation of the family intact. So outsiders have a certain image of the family, which may not necessarily reflect what's happening inside of the home. Educational achievement. This was a big one in my family. You had to be either a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. I'm none of those things. So in some families, in some cultures, academic success is a significant expectation, and they really place a strong emphasis on doing really well at school, and as a way of building a better life for yourself and for your family as well. Um, Another one is discipline and obedience. Some cultures have strict discipline and adhering to rules. It's all about following your parents' guidance no matter what. Gender roles is another big one. In my particular culture, obviously, it's very patriarchal. So men are giving more weight, more honor, more responsibility. And that can obviously play out in terms of how women are viewed and how our young girls growing up, and it can affect their self-esteem. And also, specific behaviors and responsibilities are assigned to the different genders, so which means that a lot of the household domestic roles are assigned to the young girls in the family. So, for example, if you're the oldest girl in the family, you take on a lot of responsibility for the household of looking after your siblings and that kind of thing. Religious or spiritual practice is another one. Spiritual beliefs where parents are expecting children to engage in certain religious practices because that's what it's expected culturally. A collective identity, independence at different stages is another one. Some cultures, their children are very independent from a very young age, and some are kind of baby till a little bit older. And they're given different responsibilities at different ages. So that's another one. Social conduct is another one. How you greet people, how you behave in public. In some cultures, there's a ritual of how you greet your elders, even for example. And in the role of the extended family, in some cultures, play a much bigger role than it does in other cultures. So it's understanding these cultural expectations and really thinking about what you and your family, what your children, what you're going to subscribe to, what you truly value, and what you want to bring into the family dynamic. And remembering that you don't have to throw all of it away, right? It's just thinking about what works for you and your family. The second thing that's really important is understanding and accepting the needs of your emotionally intense child, right? Because sometimes when you're parenting a child who is emotionally intense, it's a roller coaster, right? So sometimes you feel like you're just trying to hold on and you're just trying to ride the wave. But when you do have those downtimes, try to get to know your child, what their triggers are, see if you can notice visually when they start to feel discomfort. Can you even stop a sort of meltdown before it even starts because you're noticing those non-verbal cues? So learn your child by active listening, managing your own triggers. And managing your own triggers is so important because often in the middle of a situation with your child, we get triggered. We all know this, right? But if you don't manage that, if you don't notice that you've been triggered, if you don't get that trigger under control, that's how chaos can ensue. So now you are again engaging in a power struggle with your child because your triggers and maybe your wounds from childhood are now butting up against your child, and now you're dealing with two things as opposed to just dealing with your child in that moment. So managing your triggers is a very important thing to master. Observing non-verbal cues, like I said, can you notice when your child is becoming upset before they actually show that they're upset? If they're becoming a little bit uncomfortable in a situation, can you notice those non-verbal cues? Encouraging open communication, allowing your child to tell you how they're feeling, and you're making your child feel like they can come to you and talk to you about anything, like pretty much anything that's bothering them, anything that's on their mind, and validating their emotions. So even if we don't really understand it, even if we think it's not a big deal, even if we think they're mistaken, we can still validate and say, I understand how that could have made you feel that way, even if we don't agree. Validating isn't about agreeing, it's about making the other person feel heard and understood. Having empathy and understanding again is children are just small people. Sometimes I forget how small they are. I think about my 4-year-old and how he's only been in this on this earth months, literally months. If we add up how many months 4 years is, I can't do the maths right now off the top of my head. But they're so little, and sometimes when they fly off the handle or they don't, little things bother them that we think are not a big deal at all. We just have to remember, how underdeveloped that they are, how underdeveloped their brain is still, and how they're still learning. We're still learning. So just having empathy for people in the middle of their struggles, really, and being supportive and reassuring. And I always say it's about your child knowing that whatever happens, you've got their back, basically. No matter what is happening, you're on the same team. And it's not a battle against each other. You're both learning and growing together. And then the next one is educate and involve family members. Now, this can be a tricky one. I'm not going to lie. Help your family members and caregivers understand your child's emotional needs. Tell them about your child. Tell them about how you're parenting them and why you're parenting them the way you are. Educate them on the importance of nurturing those needs while respecting the cultural traditions. So involving them in the discussion can create a more supportive environment. However, we know that it is not as easy as that. They might not necessarily understand why you parent the way you parent and why it's so different from how you were brought up. So, for example, parents, can get quite defensive when you say you're doing something different than how they did something, because they take that as, oh, you're judging how they parented you. You're telling them that what they did wasn't good enough, and you just want to be the opposite of what they did, and they think you're wrong because they know better. So these are things, issues that can crop up, and it's about just leading with empathy and just trying to show them this is why I do what I do, because it's best for the well-being of my child, because my child might be easily overstimulated, very sensitive, not good with new situations, not good with sitting down for a long period of time. So these are things that you can say to them, I know my child and this is what they need. So in certain situations, I have to prioritize the well-being of my child over whatever it is that we're doing in this moment, just because even if it's an important family tradition. Again, I've put in the slide that you're not obligated to do this. It all depends on your family dynamic. But if we're trying to build a harmonious community, a harmonious home, harmony between your family and your family of origin, then it's a good step to take. And your family of origin are not obligated to understand. We have this thing where we say that the older generation are set in their ways, and that can be true to a certain extent, because if you're dealing with a 70-year-old grandmother, who's raised lots of children, and you're telling her this is what we're doing, and you're not necessarily going to change her mind, and that's okay. But what you're doing is you're giving space for that opportunity for change, for conversation, opening up the conversation, really the avenue to can change be initiated. And if it can't, that's okay, at least you tried. But you're trying for the well-being of your child, right? So that they can thrive also in a situation where they might not be 100% comfortable. So I would implore that you're not attached to the outcome of trying to educate or involve family members, but you must be prepared to set boundaries. So, for example, if you have a child, for example, who doesn't like to sit for a long period of time, but we're having some sort of family, maybe a religious situation, a religious event, and you're having to sit for a long period of time, and you have to be quiet, and you can't be fiddling and fidgeting around, and maybe some of the older generation are looking at your child and trying to give them that look to say be quiet or sit still, that kind of thing, and your child can't, not that they won't, but that they can't. And in that situation, you explain to them, my child cannot sit for this hour-long event. So halfway through, I'm going to take them, we're going to go outside for a little walk, for a little snack, and then we'll come back inside. If they frown at that, so be it. But to be honest with you, that's really respectful, because you're putting your child's, you're putting forward the needs of your child, and you're giving them a solution. This is what we're going to do. We're not going to disrupt the whole thing for everybody. I'm going to do this and then we'll be back. And, it's coming up with like a common ground. And again, they might not like it. They might think you just need to be more, stern and discipline them and make sure they sit down. Well, you can explain that's not how we parent. And when I say you must be prepared to set boundaries, is that if you really get pushed back on what you're doing and where maybe somebody wants to overstep their mark and intervene on your behalf, your first and foremost priority is your child. Because again, if when I think about my culture is one where everyone can discipline your child, from aunties, from neighbors, from people you see on the street can discipline your child. Now, if you are don't agree with that, then you have to make that boundary clear. In your family of origin, you say, only I can discipline my child. Only I can try to comfort them when they're upset, because I know how to handle them. I know what to do. I know what to say. I know what's the matter. So really, really setting those boundaries and be prepared to stick to them. The next one, I think I talked about it a little bit already, is about finding common ground. So look for areas where cultural expectations and your child's emotional well-being can coexist. Identify traditions or practices that can be adapted to support your child's needs while honoring your own cultural values. I will give you a very quick example. In my culture, there is a thing against being left-handed, right? So children are often forced to be right-handed when they start to show dominance with their left hand. So they can be forced to eat with their right hand, forced to write with their right hand. Now, I knew this because my sister was left-handed and that happened to her when we were growing up. So my eldest son is left-handed, and I was clear from the very beginning that was not going to happen in my home. If he's left-handed, that's how God made him. He's left-handed, and that's how it's going to stay. And I know when we went to his grandparents' place, they would always make comments about it, and he started to feel a bit bad about it. And I was quite vocal with him. And I said, he's left-handed. We're not forcing him to use his right hand. To me, I respect that's what you do, that's tradition. But for me, that's ridiculous to force a child to use a different hand that they are dominant in. But what I did to find common ground was I said to my son, when we go to the grandparents' house, right, when they give you something, try to remember to take it with your right hand, right? So we can make some allowances for when we're in their home. In your home, we will try to respect your boundaries as much as possible. However, you cannot make my son feel like there's something wrong with him being left-handed. But I will have that conversation with my son and say, there is a tradition, there is a cultural practice where you have to take things with your right hand in our culture. So when you see the grandparents, always think right hand. And you know what? My son was happy to do that. If he wasn't happy to do that, that would be another conversation. But there, I'm trying to find common ground where I say, you know what? We don't subscribe to this particular practice. However, I understand that in the grandparents' house, they do. So what can we do to respect them while we're in the home for 1 hour, 2 hours, and then we go home and we do our thing. So if you can find common ground like that, then that's okay. But on the flip side, don't change or don't subscribe to something that you really, really don't agree with just to find common ground. If you can find it, then I would suggest that you try at least to do it. Again, set realistic boundaries. Just determine which cultural expectations are flexible and which ones are non-negotiable in your family, and be willing to stand up for why that is. Clearly communicate these boundaries. So this is really important, so people know exactly where you stand, so that before they even try to impose it on you, they know, oh, they don't do that. That's why it's important to clearly communicate it and explain the reasons behind them, ensuring that you have decided on a course of action if these boundaries are crossed. Again, like I mentioned earlier, with discipline, if your boundary is that nobody disciplines my child because I know how to handle them when they're getting upset, and then somebody steps in and maybe disciplines them in a way that you don't agree with, what will be your next course of action? You have to decide on that before the situation happens so that you can take swift action. Swift action is important because you want to make it clear right? While you're doing what you're doing, you want to make sure that your child feels safe and that you are happy in the situation. So it's best to decide what will be the repercussions for people not respecting your boundaries. So the next one is flexibility and adaptability. So I think this is in life in general, cultivating an environment where flexibility is key. Always be willing to reevaluate your beliefs about the cultural practices that your family of origin are undertaking, the ones that you're undertaking. And as your child grows up and their emotional needs change, then you can change and adapt it to fit them, basically. Because nothing is linear, growth is up and down. So as they grow, as things change, as you change, think about what needs to change. What do we do that we don't need to do anymore? My child has grown out of, or what did we stop doing that my child can actually handle now? And then we can maybe pick up that practice again. And these are things to think about and change as you change and grow. So, in conclusion, successfully navigating cultural expectations while honoring your child's emotional needs is both a challenge and an opportunity. It's a delicate balancing act, and it's a journey that requires understanding, empathy, and flexibility, as well as a commitment to ongoing learning and adaptation. But it's such an important journey because this is where you get to carve out your own little family tradition, your own little family values. What are the culture that your children are going to learn from you and take into their adulthood and to their children and for generations to come? And it's your opportunity to absolutely change and break those generational patterns that are not serving you, are not serving your family, are not serving your children. What new patterns can we begin that are positive, that are going to ripple down positive effects into the generations to come? So this is why this is so, so important. So 7 things that I want you to take away from this presentation today is to focus on your core values. Involve your child, speak to your child, talk to them about how you were brought up, things that you maybe had to do that they don't have to do, and educate family members if you can, if it's appropriate to, if you feel like there's an open avenue to do that. And leading with empathy and understanding always with your child, we know this. Empathy, understanding is just the foundation, the building blocks of all, should be the building blocks of all your interactions with your child anyway. And there's no reason why that can't be the same with your family of origin, with your community, with people who engage in cultural practices that maybe you're not 100% on board with anymore. Number 5, maintain firm boundaries. Once you know what your boundaries are, once you know what you can and will not tolerate, it's easier for you to sort of navigate the space because you know what you're going to do should your boundaries be crossed. And be flexible, be flexible. And that actually goes back to involving your child because you might already have decided that, oh, my child cannot absolutely do that. We're not going into that. And then you might find that in the situation, your child is actually okay. So be flexible about what you're doing, what your beliefs are. As your child is growing, as they're maturing, you might not need to have so many boundaries in place. And number 7, create something new. Break negative generational patterns. This is your opportunity with your little family unit, and you're able to create something new for the next generation to come.
So, before I go, I'd love to tell you a little bit about the freebies that are available to you. So, as my gift to everybody, I'm giving you the essential checklist, a 6-step boundary blueprint that just helps you establish healthy boundaries with your extended family around your parenting practices to protect your energy. And then the second freebie is for those who have the deep connection pass, and that is my triggered to untriggered 7-day workbook, really designed to kickstart the process of bringing more peace and well-being within yourself and in your parenting. It takes you right back to basics, helping you to reset from wherever you are in your parenting and make the changes that you really want to make in your parenting. So those are available to you, and I hope you really do enjoy them and get a lot out of them.
So that is the end of my presentation today. I really hope that you got something out of it, and I would love to connect with you. My email address is on the screen. Send me an email. I'd love to know any feedback about the presentation today. Just a little bit there on the screen about what I do. I am a parent coach for all parents. However, these are my specialities. But if you have any questions at all, any queries, you have any comments, I would love to hear them. Please do just email me, and I would love to get into a conversation with you. And finally, I would love to invite you to listen to my podcast, Untriggered Parenting Podcast, filled with parenting tips, expert insight, inspiring conversations, all to empower you in your parenting. I have incredible guests on there, and you can listen anywhere that they have podcasts. And that's all from me today. I'm so happy to have spent some time with you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the Parenting with Intensity retreat and the rest of your day. Speak to you soon. Thank you. Bye.